Guys, so we're doing September chores today. I don't even have my mic. Do I need it? Okay. Sydney says no. I don't need it. Okay. So we're doing chores for September. And Sydney's not going to focus on the front of the house because I have weeds everywhere. And the difference between the front bed, which is bed number one, and the rest of the beds are the fact that there's paper down. So you see, I don't even have weeds except for around the edges where you can't get paper on. So chores for September is just really a lot of thinking about me rethinking. That's one of my chores I have on my list from my phone, but I'll go in order and be nice so I can keep my thoughts together. So first one, of course, is deadheading. Um, for most people, I think you can deadhead. For the South, especially right now, I'm not deadheading anything. I really do not want um, any of these plants to put forth any energy to making new flowers and stuff. And so right now, I'm not deadheading. But if you're in cooler temps or experiencing cooler temps, or you have just cooler temps, then you can go ahead and deadhead so you can get more flowers. I'll probably deadhead the butterfly bushes and the roses probably in the next couple weeks. Um, and so that's a good one. And then I can put a check mark here. The next one is monitoring newly planted items. So if you plant something new and you want to kind of monitor the growth, so everything in the yard is new this year, right? So here's a few things. So here's my rose. My rose is doing pretty good. Got a couple of yellow leaves, but it's been hot as you know what out here. Um, then I have these daylilies, which none of the daylilies are new, but they are new plantings because I replanted them or transplanted them from other areas. Then we have like a hibiscus over here. And what I've noticed about the hibiscus, of course, this is not the herbaceous one. This is the one that you get at the garden center, and it's all got these pretty green leaves. This thing is never going to get too much bigger than what it is. So this is not the herbaceous one that I really, really want. That's the one that gets huge, usually about 4 or 5 feet. Is there a bee on me? Okay, I heard it. So, kind of monitoring plants. So I know for monitoring new plants, I want to take that out. And that will probably be overwintered, or I'll give it to Sydney to put on her porch. Sydney's like, yay, free plants. Then come down here. So here's daylilies that came up. And as you guys know, we did scorched earth policy last year, right? And so with the scorched earth policy, a lot of these plants are plants that I already had. So with these plants, I'm just kind of monitoring and seeing, okay, how are they looking? Do I need to get rid of some? So my irises actually have fanned out a little bit better. So I think they're starting to like this area. And so, of course, the irises are these things. Okay. Here's the daylilies that my foot is touching, which are taking over this whole spot. And so I think I'm going to keep it just the way it is with the few lilies I have there. I don't think I'm going to plant any more lilies anytime soon. But those are things I want to evaluate. And then come up this way. Watch out for peach spot. So, what else? Like, okay. So as far as evaluating, so these trees I planted last year, they're not too far gone. But if you'll notice, if Sydney can get a view of them, they're leaning to the left. And so one of them is blooming and one of them is not. Now, if you look above me, there's this huge, massive oak tree that I love. So unless I want to get these trees to go straight up and have more blooms, I would either have to have this huge branch cut so I can get more light, or I have to move these. That is a huge branch, or limb, I should say, and I'm not cutting it. I love the shade that it provides. So the easiest thing would be for me to move these trees. I will move those this fall. I hope they can hear me. So we'll probably move these 2 crepe myrtles in fall. The color on here is amazing. Look at that hot pink on these dark burgundy leaves. That's just amazing. I love this tree. And so also evaluating plants, of course everything's new. Those 2 sticks in the pot, you remember those were lilies I had dug up. They're fine. They die back. Now that they're not green anymore, I can cut down the stem all the way and they'll come back next year. I'm not worried about those. So this hydrangea over here, this smooth hydrangea, this incredible number 2 did pretty well. It actually put on a bloom this year. The others did not. This one in the back over here, it stayed fluffy like that one, but it did not give me any blooms. So is that because it didn't get enough sun or what? Is this the perfect spot for this one? And then the one over here, if we're talking sun, Coda has jumped on this one. So the whole limb is broke on there. But it did give me some new growth right here. And it's still leafing, but it never grew any taller than this. So do I need to maybe fertilize a little bit more? I don't get out here and fertilize often because I'm so used to putting down compost. If you watched my previous video, you know I don't do fertilizer often in the garden because we're in the yard. I'm not in pots. So compost it is, but you know, if I need to add something, I may do a liquid fertilizer and that's it. Then all of this over here is brand new plantings. So this rose did okay, right? So you got a couple little critters that tried to eat on it, but for the most part, this actually bloomed for me a few times. And so I think I'm going to maybe leave it. This, I just planted like a couple weeks ago, and it hasn't done more than this. It has been so hot, so I don't expect that it's going to do more than what it's doing. And of course, that one is, let me look. That's the 9 bark. So remember, the 9 bark gets about 6 feet, maybe even more. So with me knowing I have to move those 2 trees, and I'll probably move them over in this area, do I want to put the 2 trees, one of the trees behind it and have this in front? But I think the 9 bark is going to be almost as tall as those trees, because the trees never get bigger than, I think, 10 feet. 10 to 15 feet is what's on the label. So I have to think about leaving the 9 bark there or moving it over. And I think I may move it over and then still have the irises in the back. So it's a thought. Okay. And then come over here. So this little guy, which is a, I know it's a stick. Just don't worry about it. This is gardening, and it's been 100 degrees and 95 degrees and so forth. So I'm sorry, my garden is not perfect, but it's not going to be. So this is a coneflower that I rescued, and it did actually put out these little blooms. So it did put on a little bit of a show. So, but I think I'm going to move it and have all the coneflowers in one area. Now, do I want to move it from this spot and move it up, or do I want to have the 2 trees right here? So that's something to think about. Then this rose, I had cut it back once, and this is what it did. It shot up like this. So I didn't want to cut it anymore, but it seems like things have been eating this one more than it does the other one. So what do I want to do about that? I mean, the flower itself, the plant itself is healthy, but then you have all this previous damage from bugs when they were out. And I didn't see Japanese beetles, so something else was eating it. And then of course, these are my volunteer roses. So that's why it looks like they're just kind of there. They're volunteers. Okay. And then I have mushrooms everywhere. And you know, mushrooms come from fungus, so there's something going on in the yard. And of course, when you cut through branches and roots in the ground, this is what you get. So that's part of, that's the issue that I'm gonna have to work on. So that's part of me rethinking and monitoring newly planted planted items, as well as things that I put in the yard. Okay. And so as far as, you know, the rest of the stones, I will get that in the next 2 weeks because it'll be cooler. But I'm not doing anything right now. It's entirely too hot. For those of you who like to get out here and it's 95 degrees, you go right ahead. And then of course the next thing is you want to check for damage from pests. So we did that. Don't look at the front, Brad. So we did that, and I could see that I had pests on that rose back there, and then one of the other plants. Then next thing we want to think about, which is part of what I just did. I think it's a moth. I don't know. We want to think about what plants performed well and those that didn't. So I think, to me, all the plants did as well as they could have possibly done being planted this year. Why would I expect the plants to be like, oh my gosh, everything is just so fluffy and beautiful and all that stuff? Like, like I told everyone initially, I'm not a person who gets out here and waters constantly. I will water to keep things alive to a certain extent. But after a while, plants have to do what they're going to do. We've had a lot of rain. And so I'm not going to get out here every day and water. I know some people do. Good for you, but I don't. I expect plants that are for this area and that are native to this area to survive. Daylilies do not need that. Plants are going to live or they're going to die. So most of my plants, they're living. Are they going to thrive and be the bushy and things like that? No, they're not. It's hot. It's 95 degrees. What do you want? Right? So to me, the plants have done as well as could be expected. So I don't expect them to be, to be the best. Now next year they probably will because they'll be more established. So once your plants get established, they will perform better, especially even in heat. Okay? So, I don't mind if they die back a little, they drop some leaves, they don't bloom as well. I'm not going to fertilize and have the plant doggone kill itself so I can put on a show for you guys, right? Because I'm just trying to give you the realities of gardening, especially in the South. It's hot. And, even places up north are experiencing very high temps. And so nobody wants their plants to put forth so much energy that they're depleting themselves. Okay. And then of course, next thing, what needs to change in your garden? Do you need to transplant, remove, or rethink? So just like we just did, I have to rethink about where do I want to put those 2 crepe myrtles. Those are the 2 big things for me, is digging those crepe myrtles up and possibly putting them on this side of the fence where it gets more sun, more consistent sun, I should say. They get some sun over there in the morning, and it lasts for about a good 4 hours. But obviously, it's not enough because the plants are leaning towards this way. No, I don't. I don't need to remove anything else except for that hibiscus that we talked about and changing it with something else. And then another thing, even though the northern gardeners are starting to order their bulbs because they're going to have fall a lot sooner than southern gardeners have to go ahead and order your bulbs now. So, your bulbs, your trees, and things like that are for fall planting. And the reason is because if you wait, when we start to have cold weather, there's not going to be anything left. So your seeds, your bulbs, and your trees, you need to go ahead and order now. And you're just going to have to put them in your holding area. Everybody has a little holding area, and that's fine. Okay, this time's out so quick. So next thing, tool cleaning. There's a little trick for tool cleaning. In between, I used to do this all the time, and I haven't done it yet, but I have to. Get a bag of sand, find a really huge pot, pour the sand in there, and then pour some, is it cooking oil? I used to use some of the gasoline from the mower, which is just regular gasoline, right? And put it in there. But you can use oil, and you just pour just enough oil to coat your tools, and you stick it in the sand. And that cleans your tools and sharpens them every time you dig in and dig out with your tools. So if I put my nippers in there and it's full of sand and I have the oil, when I dip it in there, when I pull it out, this sharpening, think about the sand and the grit. So that's, I'm not saying it's going to give you sharpening such as like if I had the actual sharpening tool, it's not going to be like that, but it does provide an edge and it doesn't damage them. You also want to evaluate your hoses, your reels, your irrigation, and things like that. So, if we walk over here, Coda, this bug, Coda bear, and there's a big old mushroom. What are you doing? What are you doing? You little bad puppy. Coda, what are you doing? So, like if you have a soaker hose like I do, you just want to go down the line of your soaker hose and you want to make sure that it doesn't have any holes or anything like that. And the best way to do that is to turn on the water and then just kind of monitor it. And with soaker hoses, it's easy because they're soaker hoses, so the water just kind of puffs out of it. And so it looks like droplets of water going all the way down the hose, and it gives it's much slower with getting the water, but it goes directly to the roots of the plant, especially when you put down the soaker hose and then you put the mulch on top of it. It goes right to the roots, and it's wonderful. But you will see, if you see a stream shoot up, then you know you got a hole. One thing about soaker hoses is they do wear out pretty quick, so they're not going to last more than maybe 2, 3, 4 seasons before you're having to change them out. But the good thing about them, though, is that you can cut out that part and just repair it. So there's so many repair kits, and just adding soaker hoses to another soaker hose. So in the end, it actually is a good value on those. That's been my experience, though. Some people don't like them, and that's fine. And with your regular hose, of course, plugging it up and see if you have any leakage somewhere. And see if you have any water shooting up or anything like that. And then for the last one, clean your bird feeders. I'm really bad about that, and I should be better. But cleaning your bird feeders and your little bird houses and things like that, 1 part bleach to about 4 parts water or more. Really, you only need a couple drops of bleach. I don't know if anything's living in there. I don't think so, because it's not full. But yeah, as far as cleaning the bird feeders, some of the bird houses are much harder because they're so just decorative, and they really don't have an area where you can open up the birdhouse and actually clean it out. It's just more for decoration, so be careful when you're buying them. Make sure they have a hatch in the back so that you can open it up and clean out the old stuff, because birds don't always like to move into another bird's house. Okay, and then also I just wanted you guys to make sure, the last thing is, do not apologize for your yard. Do not apologize for your garden. Do not apologize for your bare areas or your non-perfect areas. Everybody has a holding pattern in their yard where they keep things, where there's old pots, tools, where they're trying out new plants and things like that. Do not apologize for those things. That's just part of it. I mean, it's not like you're doing a garden tour. If you're doing a garden tour, that's different. Then you may want to decorate it up. But why does everything have to be perfect? So don't apologize for not being perfect. And that's it for our September garden chores. If you guys have any questions, comments, make sure you put it in the comments. And like, comment, and subscribe. You guys take care. Bye-bye.